Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Erik Voss, and The Mandalorian Season 2 just snuck in a Star Wars movie Easter egg I don't think any of us expected to see again. Snoke, or at least a Mr. Burns painting tank boy who looks a lot like Snoke, among a row of creepy humanoid test subjects in an Imperial lab, supposed hopeful recipients of Baby Yoda's midichlorian-rich blood. The Rise of Skywalker revealed Snoke was a genetic strand-cast somewhere in the pipeline toward resurrecting Darth Sidious, Emperor Palpatine. But now, this episode of The Mandalorian might have just confirmed how exactly Snoke fit into that timeline, which also tells us a lot more about the First Order. Now, the cynical reality is that Snoke was a missed opportunity caught in the crossfire of a studio and directors not really on the same page of who they intended the ultimate villain of The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, and The Rise of Skywalker to be. But now, Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau are swooping in to say, don't worry, us and our little internet breaker are gonna explain who the hell Snoke was. And no, he wasn't that guy in the jeans. Okay, let us back up to remember how Snoke was first introduced to us. In The Force Awakens, Snoke was the Force-sensitive ruler of the First Order, an Emperor-style hologram, voiced and mocapped by Andy Serkis. Snoke's origins were initially intended to be mysterious, hailing from the unknown regions and worming his way up the ranks of the First Order, bypassing First Order founders Grand Admiral Ray Sloan and General Brendol Hux, father to Armitage Hux, the First Order general who committed the galaxy's worst war crimes but then subverted his whole life's work by becoming a spy for the Resistance.
I'm the spy.
What?
Anyway, Snoke oversaw the First Order's construction of Starkiller Base on Ilum and recruitment of child soldiers like Finn. And during that time, he reached out to Ben Solo with the Force, encouraging the young man's rebelliousness and independence so that Ben would eventually turn on Luke Skywalker and burn down Luke's attempt to rebuild the Jedi Order. But then, when The Last Jedi came out, we got to know a different side to Snoke, his weird love of finery, golden robes, Sith jewelry, and we got to see a lot of his actual freaky anatomy. He's really tall, and that split in his head. A companion book actually suggested the scar was caused by a wound he suffered when he was younger, but none of this backstory seemed to matter though, because Kylo Ren betrayed Snoke, he split him in half, and he proclaimed himself the new supreme leader of the First Order. But then, the opening minutes of The Rise of Skywalker further redefined Snoke's backstory, establishing him as a clone strand-cast, one of many copies incubated by Palpatine's scientists working on Exegol. This group is called the Sith Eternal, a cult of religious fanatics using gene splicing to preserve Darth Sidious and to develop a new host body for him to live once more. They were never successful, with one of those failed tests including Palpatine's strand-cast son. As Kylo Ren arrived at Exegol at the beginning of the movie, the ghostly voice of Palpatine explained it this way.
Snoke trained you well.
I killed Snoke. I'll kill you.
My boy, I made Snoke. I have been every voice you have ever heard inside your head.
So essentially the voice of his grandfather, Vader, Kylo would pray to in The Force Awakens, and the voice of Snoke that lured him away from Luke and taught him in the First Order. According to Palpatine in The Rise of Skywalker, that was all him. Why would Palpatine go to all this trouble? Well, I mean, I guess you could say that if he were to approach young Ben Solo as himself, that Jedi trainee might immediately balk and shut him out. But by approaching him as his morally clouded grandfather figure, or as a completely new stranger, he could use that new face to better manipulate Ben. Kind of like how the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist, or that he was Darth Vader. But what new things have we learned about Snoke from this episode of The Mandalorian? But before I continue, I want to thank Raycon for sponsoring this video. So Raycon earbuds start at about half the price of any other premium wireless earbuds on the market, and they sound just as amazing as other top audio brands that you know. Check it out. They stay in my ear even if I need to jerk my head around to see if it's a bird or a plane or Superman in the sky. Not losing these things. See, I wear these Raycon E25s while I'm working around the house. A long battery life is really helpful when I'm 5 episodes deep in a true crime podcast, or just really blasting some music while I'm making a grilled cheese, because I like to blast while I make grilled cheese, but I don't want to force my Nora Jones on anyone else within earshot. Raycons make a great holiday gift because it's something your loved ones can use every day for work or play at home or on the go. I have a set of their E25 arrives, and I love them. They have 6 hours of playtime, seamless Bluetooth pairing, more bass, and a more compact design that gives you a nice noise isolating fit. Now is the time to get your best prices of the year on Raycons, but hurry, this offer is available for a limited time only. All you gotta do is just go to buyraycon.com/newrockstars. Just click on the link in the description box to get 20% off your Raycon purchase. Now, as I was saying, when it comes to Snoke's new origin, this episode of The Mandalorian suggests that the genetic experiments that produced clone Snokes did not begin on Exegol, that they were actually part of an experiment that dated back years earlier, around the time of The Mandalorian, when remnants of the Empire and scientists linked to the cloning facility on Kamino attempted to harvest midichlorian-rich blood from donors in order to inject into these strand-cast clone bodies. And apparently all these attempts failed, but it's a start. The clearest close-up we got was this test subject that looks a lot like Snoke. Now yes, it would be odd for this subject to already have the split in his head when the companion book suggested Snoke got it as a scar, as an injury. But the question remains, what led to the future successful trial of Snoke? Did a Force-sensitive midichlorian-rich donor give his or her life to make that happen? The child, Ahsoka Tano, maybe other Jedi figures like Ezra Bridger? And how do we reconcile this with the identity we came to know as Snoke, the voice of Andy Serkis and the owner of, we presume, many leather-bound books? Who was that? Was it Andy Serkis in his mocap suit actually being voiced and mocapped by Palpatine? I think we can surmise that Snoke was an independent identity, a strand-cast created for the original intent to host Palpatine's spirit, but even after they created a successful Force-sensitive host body that was alive, Palpatine's consciousness didn't take. It was not compatible for whatever reason. So instead, Palpatine constructed a new identity in the body of Snoke, one that he can control, an identity that would never know its true purpose, but one that could run the First Order and recruit Ben Solo, doing all this as a proxy for Sidious, all while Sidious's Sith Eternal scientists kept splicing and splicing until they got something closer to a body that resembled Sidious's original form, so that they could pick up with the Final Order after Kylo Ren inevitably overthrew Snoke. So what got them there with like Palpatine 2.0 beyond the Snoke host body? Well, I think that's what this season of The Mandalorian is going to explore further. Maybe the future of this tank boy on Navarro will explain the different process that resulted in Palpatine 2.0, a difference that could have been as simple as Baby Yoda's blood. Snoke could have been formed by splicing DNA from donors like that, but maybe that's as far as they could get with that line of testing. Whereas Palpatine reformed with those scientists using slightly different means, different donors. Maybe even they found his broken corpse recovered from that second Death Star ruin. And yes, I think Moff Gideon's group could be the origins of that, the origins of the Sith Eternal, the Final Order. Now, I used to think he could have been the origins of the First Order, but if the First Order was genuinely oblivious to their connection to Palpatine, I think Moff Gideon must be part of the faction that is aware of the Palpatine connection. Now, I guess the one thing to keep in mind with that is the Sith Eternal seem to be a group of like hooded cultists interested in the Sith doctrine of Darth Sidious, whereas Moff Gideon appears to be a military officer more loyal to the Empire and the military might that Palpatine's Emperor identity represented. But on the other hand, Gideon does wield the Darksaber, which could tell us he is interested in the ways of the Sith and the Jedi, deeper than the military superiority they help secure. We should also accept the possibility that Moff Gideon might just have his own agenda, maybe a restoration of Imperial military power, and that's it, and that he is just being used as a pawn by darker forces like the Sith Eternal and Palpatine in ways that he doesn't fully appreciate, and maybe he'll just be cast aside when the time is right. But the bottom line is that Snoke's story is going to be more involved with Star Wars history than, you know, Exegol tub bastard. His rise happened way earlier in the transition between the Empire and the First Order. His rule was a lot more complicated than mere Palpa-puppet, and his death was, yeah, more meaningful than his unflattering open casket puke fest would have you believe. If you want to help support this channel, you can buy shirts like the one I'm wearing at our official merch store, newrockstarsmerch.com. It's filled with fun, nerdy designs and shirts and hoodies, masks. Subscribe to this channel, hit that notification bell, follow me on Instagram at EA Voss, follow New Rockstars. Thank you for watching. I have spoken.